You're listening to the Rent Roll Radio Show with Sterling Chapman.
Hey, Rent Roll Radio listeners, as always, I'm your host, Sterling Chapman. Today, we're joined by a dear friend of mine and also my co-host of the Red Stick RIA meetup, John Roberts. Welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Sterling. I'm happy to be here. Longtime listener. Never thought I'd actually be on the show. So happy to be here.
I also forgot to mention he is my CPA as well. So, John, super excited to have you on, and really, excited to have you in my life as a friend and a colleague and somebody to work with and bounce ideas off of, and happy to have you on the show and kind of get a different perspective as somebody who just kind of is what do you have, six properties now?
Yeah, that's right. 5 and one under contract. I started investing in June of 2020 for the turnkey deal. And, since then, pretty much every property that we've done has been a burr. And it's funny because leading up to actually meeting you and actually getting in the mix of the local real estate, meet up groups in place at the time, and then also meeting other investors, I didn't think burrs were possible where we live. I have a good friend in Atlanta who has been doing it for years. And, I had such a scarcity mindset to not realize what was in front of me, that there were a ton of really successful investors already doing burrs in our area. And so I was able to go to these meetups and meet the players, the movers and the shakers, and learn the ropes and just replicate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So when did we meet? Had you done your first property when we had met? I think for our listeners, John is as I said, an accountant, and he worked with my mom, and I think one of them overheard the other one talking about real estate investing, and she was like, "Oh, well, you should listen to my son's podcast." And that's how we got to know each other, and now we're really close friends. But where were you at in your, I don't recall, had you started buying properties at the time yet?
No, I had not. So you and I met in late 2019. I got serious about learning real estate, I would say, in 2018. As you mentioned, I was in public accounting previously, and one of my niches was credit unions. So one thing that we would do in audit would be go in and look at their loans and determine if the borrower's creditworthy and if they had the ability to pay and were they paying timely. Ultimately, were they good assets? Were they good loans to the bank or credit union? And I'd see this huge $5 million line of credit secured by 80 properties in parts of Baton Rouge that I'd never heard of. And I thought, man, there's got to be something to it. So, of course, my inquisitive mind, I'd Google these properties and I'd see what they look like. And I'm like, man, that property is worth $200,000. And it's, a 3-2, 1,200 square foot house that was built in the 60s. And so I would see the returns that were coming to these landlords and how they were able to service the debt, because they had to give the rent rolls to the bank. And of course, I had the inside scoop from that point. So after that, I started to look at it on a more macro scale. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, of course, and then I read, Gary Keller's Millionaire Real Estate Investor, and I got involved in Bigger Pockets. And it was about that time that I met some really awesome people, much like I met you. I'm a big believer in the law of attraction, and that, what you put out into the world will come back to you. And it came out to where I would tell my friends, who were all pretty high achievers in their own right, that I was interested in investing in real estate. And they said, "Oh, well, you got to meet so-and-so, or, so-and-so from college does that. Why don't you reach out to him?" And so I did. So I started reaching out to all of these people who, I saw from afar, and I saw that they were doing really well. And I just came to them, kind of vulnerable, and said, "Hey, I see what you're doing. I'd really like to emulate it. Can you teach me? Is there something that I could do for you in return that, would make this a little more equitable?" And, that's how you and I met. your mom overheard me talking on the phone about real estate to someone, and she, at the time, you, I think, had maybe 4 or 5 properties, which just goes to show the speed of your trajectory, in late 2019. And, you and I met, and we talked a lot about mindset, and, and it's important too, I think, for new investors to understand that nobody does it alone. You look at somebody out there just crushing it, and you look at them and you say, man, well, what's wrong with me? Like, what do they have that I don't? But the fact of the matter is they have a team behind them, or they had someone who gave them their first break. It could be their lender. It could be a mentor. It could be someone who showed them the ropes, who took the time, like you did with me, or like my buddy Assis did with me, just to, learn vicariously through someone else. And so the only difference between a high achiever that you see on Facebook just crushing, and then someone who's just stuck in their ways, is the ability to get out and meet people and to talk to people on the phone and really be vulnerable, because at the end of the day, nobody does it alone,
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we started the meetup. And I'm so glad we did. And I'll give John credit because I didn't want to do it because I was busy. And
yeah, Lexi asked me, Lexi, my wife, asked me today, she said, does Sterling, do you guys actually get anything for starting, for doing the meetup? And, it's a lot of effort, and there is some money involved in terms of renting the room and stuff like that. And I said, yeah, but what we're getting out of it will manifest itself in 2, 3, 4 years from now. I've already got people coming to me asking me to be their mentor, and I'm proud to do it, thinking that I'm not really that great of an investor, but I know people who are. But it affords me the opportunity to maybe buy a deal that they might not have the opportunity to buy themselves at the time. They might have 2 or 3 fall in their lap, and they pass one to me. And, it's a scratch my back, I scratch yours, you scratch mine type of a relationship. And that's really life, man. It's all a relationship game. And it's really cool to finally kind of find my path in terms of, meeting who work hard, don't make excuses, have extreme ownership, and just find a way. Because that's really what entrepreneurship and real estate investors are. They're just problem solvers, and they don't quit. So
it's funny that Lexi just asked you about that, because, I was thinking about this morning, because I spend a good amount of my time just pouring into other people and helping people that really have nothing or any capacity to repay me. But I'll tell you the observation I've made over the years in doing so, and the observation I've made from interviewing several other super successful investors, is that the universe likes that shit. And I don't have any quantifiable evidence to say like, hey, this is the return you'll get by helping others and stuff. But I can I say that, but I really do, and I do get a lot. Like, I can't tell you the number of deals I've been sent from people at those meetups, or people that know me from the podcast. I can't tell you how many people have passively invested in my apartment syndication projects that started off and other people that I didn't really think had anything at the time, but they just reached out, hey, I want to learn more about investing. And then after we got to talking, well, actually, yeah, I've got this other money sitting in a 401k that I rolled over that I'm not doing anything with. So we've partnered on deals, or you know what I mean? It comes back in a lot of different ways. So, I mean, you don't always know how it's going to do it, how it's going to come back to you, but it usually does. I noticed the same phenomenon with sales with my day job when I was selling, telecom equipment. Was like most 90% of my sales came from like customer service, some type of fixing somebody's issue that like I had no, like I didn't expect them to buy anything. Like they had a problem with their rate plan and I'd go fix it. And they, hey, you know what? While you're here, we've been thinking about, we got this other location, and it's just always something like that. It's like, I've never read the book, but I hear enough about it. It's like the go-giver effect where if you, and Zig Ziglar was a big one. If you help enough people get anything they want, you can have anything you want, but it's in real estate investing. And I'm sure with every industry, it works the same way, but I've seen it. This is very, very much a people business and a team sport, and where you're going to get the money and where you're going to get the deals, and there's really no other way to do it. And I'm really glad you twisted my arm into starting the meetup, because I think it's got a tremendous amount of value, even if it's not directly obvious today. I think, to your point, in 2 years, you'll look back and go, holy shit, thank God I did that.
Yeah. And I think too, it's one thing where, it's the people, okay? It's the people who you meet who are also go-givers and who also have the capacity to really make moves. Because at the end of the day, nobody wants to be rich and sad. People want to be rich so that they can spend more time with their family and more time with. And so by nature, that is a social, that's some social, I guess we want to be social beings is what I'm getting at. Yeah. And, at the end of the day, you could have all the money in the world, but no one to share it with. What's the point? So the whole idea of, the law of attraction to me is simply putting yourself in a position to where others see that you're willing to give more than you get back in return at that particular time, and being on the same wavelength, the same energy to say, man, that guy is humble. That guy lives for others. And that guy is someone who I know is going to have my back if I need him. He's not so self-centered that, the minute something goes wrong, he's going to stab me in the back. And so, life is very much a team game. And, I've been really blessed to, like I said earlier, always be surrounded by high achievers. Like just growing up, even in high school, one of my best friends, Aldo Russo, he's an entrepreneur, and he really inspired me to break out on my own with my own accounting firm and things of that nature. And, people like my dad who are entrepreneurs. And, when I was coming up, we've had this conversation before. I used to travel a lot for work, and we'd see that, 40 something, 50 something executive, sitting in first class with a jacket, trying to make a red eye on a Friday evening.
Suckers wear suits.
Exactly. And I wanted to be that guy. And, I worked my way up through public accounting, and then I wanted to be CFO. And now, just seeing how much opportunity there is out there for someone who even has the itch to go out on their own and do their own thing. Now, I love the entrepreneurs, like the CFOs, the CEOs who are held hostage by a board or biased by a boss, a chair per se. They're kind of suckers. And, no offense to those guys, but like, just moving more towards entrepreneurship and making your own way. I've really had that, I guess, coming of age moment these last 3 or 4 years. And it's really a great place to be,
Awesome. Well, let's dive into the projects. Tell us, what is, from when we first met and you didn't have any properties, what got in your, what did you have to overcome to get the properties? A lot of people come to me like, where do I start? I don't have any money. I don't have any deals. I don't know where to look for deals. So like, how did you get from that place where everybody starts to your first project? And what did your first project look like?
Yeah. So my first project was turnkey, believe it or not. So, it was a $135,000 house. My younger brother, Joel, who's my business partner, he, incredible work ethic, but, he's single, no kids, et cetera. And so he's also very handy. So the thought was for me to kind of be the numbers guy, maybe the deal flow kind of guy. And then Joel would help with ultimate rehab and maintenance and property management, things of that nature. And so Joel had some money, I had some money, and I said, dude, we've got to do this one thing. We need proof of concept. Let's just put some money together. And then my dad, who I mentioned before, is an entrepreneur, very debt averse, very Dave Ramsey-esque, and believes that all debt is bad and things like that. It's like, well, why don't you just, pay cash for the house and not mortgage it? And then, you're cash flowing, $1,300 a month. And I said,
because I want 50 of them.
Yeah. I said, that's not scalable. And then, I got the quintessential, well, what happens when, the toilet overflows at 2 a.m.? What happens when your tenant has 3 young kids and one of them gets sick and they can't make the rent and you have to evict them on Christmas Eve? Do you have the heart for that? And I'm like, Dad, you're thinking about every bad thing that could go wrong. Is it a reality? Yes. Okay. Are evictions real? Yes. But I told him, what I would do, Dad, is I would contact some government assistance agency for them. And I'd say, look, my tenants are in dire need of something. I want to continue to help them out. But as you know, it's bleeding me dry. We pay taxes for reasons like this. Right. And so, that was my response. And so the very first one, we rented it out in a day. I had another friend of mine, Anthony Neeson, who was a realtor and also who helped me get going. And we had some great tenants in there. They stayed for a year, college kids, and then it turned over. And, this was back at the very beginning of COVID. So my interest rate was like, low threes, even for an investment property. And so, my cash on cash return there, even after reserves, was in excess of 25%. And so, and it's appreciated since then. And so when I was able to prove that I could manage the tenants, I could screen them, that it was really like mailbox money if you take care of your asset, then the next step was this BRRRR that we did, and it was in Hammond, and it's a foreclosure. And I had made a few cash offers already. My dad had agreed to help us out, and what money Joel and I did not put into that first deal, we basically put it all into this enterprise. And I had learned real quick that my offers sucked. Like I might come in at 85%, but tell them that I was going to pay cash and I could close next week. Well, that ain't good, because I was going against guys who were paying 105% asking price, with cash. So this particular deal was a foreclosure. I called my realtor the day of. My brother went over there to check it out. And, he pulls up in his old truck, and, he's actually got a really nice truck. But at the time, it was an older truck. And there's a Tesla in the driveway. There's an Infinity, huge DX, whatever. And he's like, there's no way we can even compete with these guys, in terms of making an offer. And so I told the realtor to say, look, give them full price.
In my experience, the Tesla probably belonged to the tenant.
Yeah, well said. Well said. So we get this property, and, we were one of 12 offers, I think. And my was so surprised. And I really wasn't surprised, because I knew the game at that point, right? The key is even in your failures, to take something from it and learn from it. Like, no failures, only lessons learned. That's one thing that I try to continue to remind myself. And so, my dad and my brother are very handy, and they wanted me to learn how to swing a hammer and all that. And so, got a few injuries on the job site, but, we rehabbed it ourselves it probably took us like 4 or 5 months. And I told myself every weekend, like, I'm never doing it again, And so we got all into that property for 30 grand. Again, we did a lot of the work ourselves, but we made it nice. We made it crown molding and nice backsplash, and, changed out all the windows. And it appraised at 165. I was going for like 155. So, got back about, I think around 125 in the cash out refi. So we had 5 grand stuck in the deal. My note on that was like in the low sevens, I think maybe 720, and it rents $1,400 a month. And so again, I got all my cash.
Is that 720 including insurance and taxes?
Yes. Yeah, it sure is. Yeah. So my properties they all cash flow really well. I do have some money in them, but hopefully on the back end, with the appreciation side, I'll be able to make up for the money that I have stuck in there. You know what I mean? So after that, we picked up two at a time. I had gone probably a year without, not a year, but maybe like 9 months without really finding any deals. And it was really around the time that we started the meetup. And, at that point, I really opened up my mind to like accepting what comes to me. Like I was doing 75 hard at the time, which, we talked about. And so I'd spend a lot of time in the evenings, especially as I went to sleep. I'd go on a walk/run every night, and I'd always listen to a local business podcast or like some other motivational. I listen to your podcast a lot, and I thought, man, I just need to go out there a little bit more. And so, our boy Josh Wilson put on that event at the Pelicans game, and I'm there, and I met a bunch of other high achieving real estate investors. And it just really inspired me to enact more, to interact more Facebook, in those groups, right? And make new friends and build trust. And so sure enough, these deals started coming to me. And the realtor who had sold me the first deal that was on Sanders, the first burr that we did, they came in with a nice off market pocket listing. And so I bought another one in Ponchatoula that came from a wholesaler. And so the next thing you knew, I went from having 0 deals in 9 months to 2 in a week. And, you and I had this conversation. I'm like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. And it was so funny because you were so cool under pressure, but you said, just buy them both and we'll figure out where to get the money from. And if you get more, we'll buy those too. And
sounds like something I would say.
Yeah. And wouldn't you know, these small community banks that you deal with and that you turned me on to, that they gave me these subject to appraisal loans to where, I used the cash and I needed it for like 30 days, as long as it would take for the bank to close on my subject to. They would give me 90% loan to cost, which is, the purchase price plus my cost of the rehabs, or 80% loan to value. And so that more than covered what I would need to cover the purchase price and also the rehab. And my interest rate's like 5%. I think I paid 1 point at closing, and so I was able to keep all my cash. And so now that I kept all the cash, that's how I was able to do this, get this property here under contract in Baton Rouge, which is, 8 minutes from my house. And again, I'm probably going to have some money stuck in that deal, but it's going to rent at $1,800 a month. And my note on it, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance is going to be like $800, and I'll probably have a higher class of tenant. And hopefully, if your listeners outside of Baton Rouge or outside of the state of Louisiana are experiencing the same thing that we are, there's no rentals right now. I don't know why. Maybe it's because of the housing shortage at the retail level, kind of trickling down. The fact that lumber prices have been crazy for months and months, and people who anticipated being in their new house are still renting, and it's just causing a huge crunch on the rentals. But that first property, that turnkey property that I mentioned, I had a realtor list it. I'll pay him 60% of the first month's rent to list the property, screen the tenants, etc. And we're charging $1,450 a month. The next highest is $1,300 a month in that neighborhood. So we're charging an extra $150 a month, and we had 5 showings in the first 2 days. So it just goes to show that, if you have a nice asset, people are going to live there. Just because you didn't maybe rent when you were in your 20s, your 30s, doesn't mean that people don't, because they do. And they're good people. They're hardworking people. They just need a safe place to live. So, that's why I love real estate. It's a basic tenet of being alive, food, shelter, water. And, it's one of these things that, isn't a commodity. It's a necessity. So.
Yeah, for sure. I say that all the time. It's never going to go down to zero, right? Like, we have stocks and we have cryptocurrencies, and like they could go bankrupt at any time. Like the value could literally disappear. At no point in any type of human history is that house that you just bought in Shenandoah gonna be worth $0, right? I mean, it might slump, but in some kind of crazy economic condition, but it'll ultimately come back up on the other end.
Yeah, and there's multiple exit strategies. My 2 kids, I've got a 2-year-old and an 8-month old, both girls, and why can't I have a house or a few for each of them? So Let's say it's in Hammond, where Southeastern is, and that's where I went. So you can either live in it, you could sell it, you can cash out, refinance, you could rent it out, and oh, by the way, your college is paid for. Your college and your postgraduate. And so it's just so cool that your success when you're an entrepreneur and when you're a real estate investor. Okay, you put your money into Tesla, Elon Musk makes a stupid tweet, and your value goes down 20% in a day. Whereas when you are a landlord and you control your asset, like it's in your hands. Whether you fail or not, it's your fault. So that's one thing that I think is also great it's
control,
the ultimate control, ultimate accountability, and being able to write your own destiny.
Yeah, absolutely. What is something you've learned in the last year or the last 2 years that you wish you would have known from the beginning?
Yeah, I think it's all about mindset, man. And more importantly than mindset, it's about surrounding yourself with the people who have the mindset that you want. If you even have an itch to do something great, because most people don't even have that itch and they can't relate. There, like I mentioned earlier, there are people who have told me, "Oh, you need to meet so-and-so." Well, so-and-so becomes my best friend, because we're on the same level of energy. And, it's about getting in the right arena, because it's lonely at the top, from what I hear. I'm not there, but those people who are uber successful, they want to give back. They want to help out. They're just waiting for you to ask them for help, because they don't know that you need help. They don't know that you're even interested in getting help. And so it's just reaching out, like taking that step out of your comfort zone. Again, be vulnerable and seek what you want, because it's out there. If out there is doing it, they didn't become perfect at it right away. Like you see the finished product. You're comparing your rough draft of your life to their finished product. And it's fair comparison,
I do that all the time. I look at Facebook and see like 53-year-old guys with like all these units and stuff. And I'm like, son of a bitch. And like, they've been doing this for 27 years. I've been doing it for 3. You know what I mean?
That's right. And, one thing I like to do, especially if I find them on Facebook, and this is kind of like a guilty plug, but I'll click on their profile picture and then just go back in time as far as I could go.
Nice.
To see what they look like when they were my age, right? And like, were they at the bars, were they getting drunk at LSU on a tailgate? Because it humanizes them for me. I used to struggle a lot with comparing myself to others and thinking like, why not me? What are they doing that I'm not? And like we talked earlier, it was a scarcity mindset. It was, oh, Sterling's getting all the houses. Well, what about me? And fast forward, a year or two, now Sterling's dishing me some deals that, he might have 5 going on and he doesn't want a 6. So I'm going to take the 6th. Well,
I'll happily. 6. I can't.
Yeah. I'll happily take it because that's one more than I would have had otherwise, and
I mean, I say that all the time, and that is something that holds people back. I've heard a lot of people say it at the meetup stuff, like, well, you're getting all the deals. I'm like, well, I'm not getting all of them. There's a lot. And
right.
And for me and for other investors I've spoken to, like it's seasonal. Like right now, if a deal came across my desk that I needed to close on next week, I would turn it down, even if it was a great deal, because I've got I got 5 closings this month, and it would stretch me too far. But next month, you know what I mean, I would take 3 of them. And so, and that's exactly what happened the other day with that deal down the street from our house. Was like, it was just the timing didn't work out with me. I would have loved to have bought that deal, but like that happens all the time. That happens like every other month. Like you load it up and then you have to like fix them up and refinance them and get them off the books. And there's dead time. So like, don't ever be like, oh, well, Sterling's just going to buy them all, or blah, blah, is just going to buy them all. So I might as well quit and go home. Cause like, that's not the case. Like 50% of the time, every deal that pops up, I can't buy.
Right. Yeah. And you're discounting the fact that your competition, the other people who might want to buy that house, maybe they're involved in an apartment deal, or maybe they're involved in a warehouse deal, or, maybe they just did a cash out refi and, they got $1 million that they're going to live off of, and they're going to chill out, and enjoy the next few months. It's such a debilitating mindset to think, oh, that won't be me. I'll never seal the deal, because you can. And the way that you seal the deal is through relationships. You put your passion in the world and someone is going to want to fulfill that for you, because that's ultimately like the purpose of life. Like humans are social beings, like I said before. And so, I would say it's important for new investors to get motivated and stay motivated. Find an accountability partner. I talk on the phone probably 2 hours a night with different people, and it drives my wife insane. I have to go outside because I speak so loud. But when I talk on the phone, I'm talking to entrepreneurs and guys who take risks, and people who are dealing with road bumps, and I'm able to kind of talk them through it, and they're able to talk me through mine as well. And so, I made a post about this a while back on my Instagram, like just sitting back and reflecting. All of my friends are in their 30s, let's say early 30s, late 30s, whatever, and they're all millionaires in different ways. And, I could easily surround myself with people, who make 50 in their 20s, and then 150 in their 30s, and then 250 in their 40s, and then 350 in their 50s, and, work for the man their whole life, and then sit back and say, man, I had a good life, but those 8 to 10 hours every day that you spent, the fact that you spend more time at work than you spend with your family, like, what did that cost you? Right. And so I've been able to kind of step back and say, look, it ain't about the money for me right now. Like, I want to hang out with my kids. I want to hang out with my wife and my parents. And, but at the same time, I want to surround myself. I want to do it with the people that I love, the entrepreneurs, the guys who take risks. And so that's really been transformational for me. It's no longer only about the money. I'll happily live in my 2,000 square foot house for another 3-4 years. I don't need 4,000 square feet.
Feel about that?
Well, she's starting to get it too. As a stay-at-home mom, that was a big thing. It was, do you want to have a $600,000 house, or do you want to watch your kids grow up? Is what it came down to.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so many things that are right. Like there, you talk a lot about mindset. I've always been a big proponent of that, because like that really is the differentiator, right? I used to hear this quote about, if knowledge was the answer, we'd all be billionaires with 6-pack abs. And there's so many people that have so much education, and like most people know how to do it. Like mechanically, I have a lot of friends. They're like, yeah, I get the process. I'm like, well, then why aren't you doing it? Like, I don't, I mean, how I get, I'm just like, what's wrong with you? Why do you want to work 40 hours a week for the rest of your life? That's insane.
Yeah.
But it's the mindset that they need to push through the fear to take the actions and take the steps. It's the, building the obsession. The other thing is about the money. People don't realize I have this conversation a lot, because with my family, people think I'm like obsessed with getting rich, and I'm not. I'm obsessed with like not working and like having my life back. Like I work 80 hours a week now, so that like for the next 30 years, like people don't understand that. Do you know like retiring 25 years early is like adding 25 years to the end of your life. Like
that's right.
I mean, dude, think about the grind. Think about the 40-hour work week. You're waking up every morning, you're sitting in traffic, late to work, getting moaned at by your boss all day in the cubicle, and in the afternoon you're so damn tired you can't talk to anybody, and like you're like living for the weekend. And I mean, dude, if you erase that shit, like literally just wipe out the last 25 years of it by retiring at 40 instead of 65, which most people are going to be retiring at when they're dead now. But like that is it. It's literally cutting off and pasting it to but it's better than adding 25 years to the end of your life, because you're actually young enough to enjoy it, right? Like living to 125 instead of 100 doesn't like sound that enticing because you're you can do shit. But like having all that extra time, all that extra life, when you're
it's your prime too. Exactly. Like 40 to 65 has got to be your prime. I mean, you're rich enough to do whatever you want. You've got 40 years of history of making mistakes, of knowing what not to do. And, I think someone on your podcast might have mentioned it, or maybe somewhere else, but, humans by nature are just seeking comfort. They're
avoiding
seeking
seeking comfort.
Yeah. They're just looking at the easiest way to get something done, whatever shortcut it is, in order for your brain to sit back and conserve energy, because they might need it one day. Fight or flight. If we get under attack, your brain needs that energy to find a way out. The fact of the matter is that we don't live that way anymore. Okay. We are blessed to live in the US of A, the best country there is. And
my editor to play the Star Spangled Banner way.
You should, and put the big like General Patton flag behind me. But it's true, and I say that half jokingly because like some of my best friends are immigrants from Nepal, from Venezuela, from Palestine, from Brazil, and we take so much for granted here that it sickening to take a step back and look and see how much opportunity we have as Americans, and how we're in the greatest economy of the world, and so many people are sitting back making excuses why they can't make something work. Like take the guy who moved here from Venezuela knowing nobody, and had to do a student visa. And then he didn't get selected for the lottery for his work visa, so he had to go back to school to enroll in a master's program just so that he didn't get deported. You take somebody like that and put him in a real estate world, and he's going to crush it. Or take any contractor here in town who's a first generation American, like those guys are crushing it. And all this to say that just get motivated. Look at what you have in front of you. Find someone with money. It doesn't have to be someone who's just crushing it, lives on Highland Road, which is, the best place to live in Baton Rouge. It could be your grandmother's IRA, who could help you fund a deal, buy it in cash. It could be in the sticks of Livingston Parish, which is around here. It could be anywhere. But the key is, the best piece of advice that I got it from you, and I got it from my buddy Assis. It's just do it, man. If you fail, it's not a matter of if you make your money back, but when. Oh, and by the way, you just learned in 3, 4, 5 months time what it would have taken you. Like you lived it, right? So you learned it. It would have taken you 3 years to get that knowledge from talking to people, listening to podcasts, reading books, etc. Sure. So, it's a very short-minded step to just say, well, what if it goes wrong? Well, what if you never take action and you're in the same spot 5 years from now? That's the real scary part is what it would look like if you don't take action. So if there's anybody listening to this who is looking for motivation, like just do it.
Yeah. was having a conversation with my mom earlier about, she was telling me to slow down. Everybody around me is always telling me to slow down. And she was like, but what
Same.
if, the political environment and the economy and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, hold on. People always like to kind of push this risk on me. But in reality, like the guy with one income is a lot more at risk than the guy with 50, right?
Well
So,
said.
you know what I mean? Like there's an economic downturn, like you're going to lose your W-2 job and then you're like literally have zero income. Like I got it coming from every which direction. Like
that's right.
I think maybe y'all need to worry about, like, if that's what y'all are worried about, you need to get your own shit straight.
Yeah, well, and I had the same conversation with my dad last night. You know, he's one that I always bounce ideas off of. And same thing. What happens if the economy turns, you know, and housing values plummet? And I said, Dad,
I don't care.
Yeah, I said, first of all, I've got fixed debt. Okay, 30-year fix. But second of all, if it went so bad that the bank wanted my asset, okay, what are they going to do? They're going to take my asset and they're going to try to sell it. Right? They're going to try to sell it for more than the loan that's on it. Who's going to buy it? Who would buy such a depressed asset at that time? Do you know what I mean? The bank doesn't want your asset. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, so
I was, you know, she was like talking about, you know, like a severe type of almost like post-apocalyptic type environment where like the banks are calling 30-year fixed rate loans and stuff for every homeowner in America. I'm like, if that's the environment we're in, like we need to be talking about gold and guns and like stored food. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like my mortgages are the last of our worries.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I'm no economist. And like I said, I'm a CPA, but this isn't accounting advice and I'm not a lawyer either. The fact of the matter is, and I forgot to mention this earlier, I went to Bigger Pockets conference here in September in New Orleans, and that was a very eye-opening experience. Also, the event that we went to in Orlando was a very, the multifamily master's program was really an awesome experience. But there was an economist there, and he really had me thinking, okay, middle America's 401ks are propping up the market, and they will forever. Because if the government allows the markets to fail consistently for years and years on end, then they're bankrupting middle America. And everybody knows that middle America is the backbone of society. Okay. So in my mind, okay, we might have a correction, but it can't be sustainable. The government will continue to change the rules to print more money, et cetera, just to keep propping the economy up. And maybe that's an overly optimistic look at it, but at best, okay, that's what's going to happen. At worst, it's going to be the same as we are now. It's status quo.
Yeah, absolutely. So real quick, for the sake of time, let's hop to the radio round. Just three quick questions. First one is, what's your favorite book?
My favorite book is A New Earth, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose. It's by Eckhart Tolle, who is a modern day philosopher. And it's all based on the ego in terms of understanding how the ego drives humanity and how to deal with, you know, egomaniacs and checking your own ego, you know, kind of letting go with, you know, your connection to things and instead just kind of like spreading positive vibes. You know, I was gifted the book when I was in high school and I didn't really take it seriously. But when I was in college, I had a really bad knee injury, you know, ended my football career. And then after that, I read that book because for so long I had identified as being, you know, an athlete and, you know, all that. And all of a sudden it was taken away from me. And I really had to look within to say, okay, well, really, who am I? You know, I'm not just a football player. And as of now, I'm not just an investor. You know, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I'm a son, et cetera. I'm a brother. And so really just diving into who you really are and what is your purpose. You know, the purpose to me is just to be happy. Do whatever it is that makes you happy. So, yeah, that's a long answer for my favorite book. But I also love children's books. You know, I love Dr. Seuss. You know, I read my daughter, Oh, the Places You'll Go, and it just fires me up, you know, because it talks about just taking control of your life, you know, And I'm not going to lie, having kids has really expanded my motivation because, you watch a movie with your kid like Moana and, she just went out and did it. I mean,
hey, some of those Disney movies do be hitting different, huh?
Yeah, it really do. Yeah.
So what's your favorite quote?
I have a lot of favorite quotes, man, but one that really speaks to me right now is the "Man in the Arena" quote by Theodore Roosevelt. And I could read it; it'd take me a few seconds, or I'll give you the cliff notes. And the cliff notes are essentially like, it's not the critic who counts. That's how it starts. And towards the end, they talk about how the guy who puts himself out there, who takes chances, who fails, who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. And it's just about putting yourself out there and forgetting what the critics say, okay? Because if they're critiquing you, like, their opinion doesn't matter. They're cold and timid souls who neither know victory or defeat. I would rather go down swinging. You know what I mean? So that's a quote that's important to me right now.
Cool. What's your favorite thing to do outside of work?
Hang out with my wife and kids. I got 2 young girls. We go to the park a lot. As soon as they get old enough, we're going to go on a lot of bike rides. We ride all around Baton Rouge, LSU, going to Mandeville, the North Shore. Just ride the trace down there, and just spend as much time outside as possible when the weather isn't unbearingly.
Yeah, for sure. Well, how can our listeners get in touch with you, find out more about you, invest in all these cool projects you got?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, a small amount of followers on my business page, but it's Roberts Brothers Investments. That's ROBERTS for Roberts Brothers Investments. We kind of give a chronology of our projects and how they're moving. My personal Instagram is J_Rob_40. 40 was my number in college. And I'm pretty active on Facebook, John Roberts Jr. Check out our meetup at the Red Stick Rhea. And chances are, if you follow, you'll see me liking a lot of his posts. So, feel free to connect with me on any of those platforms. I do get, I'm happy to.
Do you want to share any of your 56 emails?
Yeah, exactly. So the easiest email to reach me is going to be John, JOHN, at APS, that's Alpha Paul Sam LA.com. John at APS.LA.com. That's probably the easiest email address. Also, my accounting firm is called Attract Accounting Solutions. That's Attract with 2 C's because I wanted the ACCT suffix, and I'm really going to build a brand around that, in terms of, helping companies with their books and being kind of a relatable resource to them to navigate, all the things that a typical business owner doesn't want to worry about, right? Is their finances and, being able to build trust, give guidance. Like I said, I spent years in public accounting, spent years in private equity, learning how the richest people in Baton Rouge do it. And, I'm ready to share that with others. So all of those ways to contact me.
Awesome. Well, thanks, John. I appreciate it. And we look forward to keeping up with you on your journey.
All right. Thanks again, Sterling, for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to the Rent Roll Radio Show brought to you by Crestworth Capital. We hope you enjoyed the show. And if you did, please hit the subscribe button and leave us a rating and review. You can also visit us at crestworthcapital.com or rentrollradio.com, or follow us on Facebook at Rentroll Radio or at Crestworth Capital. If you would like to reach us, feel free to shoot us an email at info@rentrollradio.com or sterling@crestworthcapital.com. We hope you come back next week to join us on some more of our journey. Until then, happy investing.